Basically, what I'm going to talk about is the Jordan River Basin, and which is, besides rain, the main source for water in our region, and basically the resource in which us, the Palestinians, and the Jordanians mainly, but also some Syrians are depending on. So we've been in the last few years we've been witnessing a huge increase in population in our region, about 9 times the population we had in the 40s. Now, I don't know if you know, but during British Mandate Palestine, one of the reasons or the excuses that Brits weren't allowing Jews to emigrate to the land of Israel was because of a fear that there's not going to be enough water for the population there. And we're talking about a population that was 1/10 of what it is now. So there's no doubt that we are living under a lot of stress and scarcity of resources. Now the question is how we can overcome. Can you please, next? No, it's not going to work this way. So basically, when you are talking about water and resources, we see that the quantity of water that is available per capita is going to descend, and in the future is going to descend even more. So we cannot rely on the resources that we have, and throughout the negotiations, next please. In the negotiations we had with our neighbors throughout the years, we, both in the Oslo agreements and in the agreement with Jordan, we agreed to the fact that we have to add resources. It's not only a negotiation about water rights, because evidently there's not going to be enough for everybody, but we have to start working to add resources of water. To make things worse, we are also suffering from climate change in our area, which means that we have much more droughts. So the dependence on water, on rain, is something that is completely unsustainable. So it's not only that we cannot rely on the dwindling resources that we have in the Sea of Galilee or in the Jordan River or in the Basin, but also the rain is going to descend, and therefore we have the crisis is even more acute. Now, here in this graph, you can see that when it comes to agriculture, we've been, in our immediate region, we, the Palestinians, the Jordanians, we've been dealing less and less of our workforce has been dependent on agriculture. But in countries like Syria, for example, the dwindling of the water resources has created a situation in which millions of people have ceased to work in agriculture only in the last decade. So when you wonder what is happening in Syria and why you have a civil war there, so one of the reasons is that there has been a huge immigration of people from the peripheral areas to the suburbs of the cities, and that is the place in which the revolution started. When I was in charge of research of the economy of the Middle East, I took a look at the economy of Syria, and I saw, Syria used to be one of the greatest exporters of cotton in the world, the number 10. But that was dependent on rain. Now, in the moment that you have a drought, the cotton, you cannot pick it by hand anymore. It means that the large families are left without work, and you have to, take it for harvest it with a combine, and it means that you get 1/10 of the price you would get when you don't have drought. So imagine what crisis you had because of water. No, is it the other way? Okay. So we're going to get, if we don't solve the problems, we are going to get to a situation that even we have to feed camels with bottled water, and we don't want to get there. Now, in the past, we used to have wars over water. So in the 60s, when Israel was doing the canal from Tiberias Lake to the south, the national water carrier, we had attempts by the Syrians and the Lebanese to shift the sources of water from the basin of the Jordan River, and that was a cause for war. We have a situation in which everybody has used, as dammed, as used for agriculture and other uses, the water that was coming to the Jordan River. So from a situation we had 1.3 million cubic meters flowing in the Jordan River, we have now a tenth of that quantity. And that means also that the Dead Sea is shrinking, as you can see here. Now, we can solve this by not only by adding resources of water, but also trying to ratio the usage of water. So in Israel, because of policies that probably my colleagues are going to, other speakers are going to talk about, there is a steady decline in the domestic consumption per capita. Another issue is that we are using now for agriculture effluent water. That's sewage water that is being purified. And it's very obvious that in the future, if we don't continue purifying all of our sewage water, we're going to suffer a huge crisis. Now, another aspect, of course, is desalination. So today, because of the fact that we have all these desalination plants, we can supply the urban consumption, and we can maintain the agriculture because the urban consumption doesn't consume the potable water, the natural potable water. So today, we have got to a situation that we basically have solved the problems in the meantime, because we are using both potable, recycled, and desalinated water. And we have got to the situation in which we don't have to fight over water. On the contrary, we can actually export water. So Israel today is exporting water. Here you can see in the screen, it's not updated to today. We are talking here about today to Jordan is not 53, it's more like 75 million cubic meters. And to the West Bank, it's about more than 60. I'm going to show it. So if we get to a situation in which not only us, but our neighbors adopt such policies, or at least some of the policies, we can solve the issue of water in our region. Now, so how we can achieve peace through water is, A, by transferring technology and different methods and methods of management. The second, by joint projects to add water. Exporting water, which we started to do, and also export of gas. How it is related, because if you want to decrease the price of desalinated water, if you have to depend on high cost of oil that can change from time to time, if we have gas offshore Israel, this can be a steady source for energy efficient production of desalinated water. So what is happening with our Palestinian neighbors? We have committed in the Oslo agreements to supply about 31 million cubic meters per year. And since then, that agreement was supposed to hold for about 5 years. And because of the fact that we are pretty stuck when it comes to the negotiation, we've been trying to cooperate on water. On some years, we had good years with the Palestinians because they were pragmatic and disconnecting the issue of water from politics. Unfortunately, in the last 5 years, we don't really have cooperation with the Palestinian side, but we've been attentive to their needs, and we've been actually doubling the quantities of water we are transferring to the West Bank. In addition to that, according to the agreements, we are coordinating with them the whole issue of drilling in the West Bank itself. So you can see here that there are several drinking, agriculture, and monitoring wells that the Palestinians have developed themselves with the help of the international community, especially with the help of the United States through USAID. We've been doing great projects with them, and we are very thankful for the role of the United States in that regard. Unfortunately, what has happened is that in areas in which we have transferred the authority to the Palestinian Authority, there is a lot of pirate drilling, a lot of illegal drilling, and that is, if this continues, it can dwindle the aquifers under the Palestinian Authority and ruin it completely. Now, this is the situation basically in Gaza. We transferred the authority in the mid-90s, and we completely left the Gaza Strip in 2007. And what has happened there is that the illegal drilling created a situation in which the aquifer is almost completely depleted, And the estimation of the international community is that within 5 years, there won't be any potable water in Gaza. So we are trying to help solve that through cooperation with the United States, European Union, the Quartet. And there are several projects. First of all, Israel is also supplying about 10 million cubic meters to the Gaza Strip. But we are trying to get into a situation in which we can produce water in the Gaza Strip. And I hope also that with the help of our Turkish friends, now that we have normalized relations with them, there will be also a player that will play a role in creating a desalination plant in the Gaza Strip. Now, with Jordan, we basically share the longest border, and we also share a lot of resources of water. In the agreement with them, we basically have reached understanding that we're going to supply them varying quantities of water. I don't want to go to all the details, but the bottom line is that in every year we supply to Jordan an average of between 55 and 75 million cubic meters. We have decided to initiate a project in the area that you see in dark green, which is the northern part of the lower Jordan River, to restore, to revive the Jordan River. Because, as I said before, once the river has dwindled, it became basically a sewage canal. So Israel has decided a few years ago to invest in a project to, first of all, avoid that any sewage comes to the Jordan River by cleaning it, desalinating it. And the second thing, because of the fact that we have solved, as I said, our water problem, we are pumping less from the Kinneret Lake, from the Sea of Galilee, and this allows us to discharge more quantities of water into the Jordan River to revive it. But this project is not going to be just a water project. This is going to be an environmental project that is going to revive the flora, the fauna, and develop touristic ventures, both on the Israeli side and hopefully also on the Jordanian side, and we are coordinating this project with the Jordanians. The second project, and you probably heard for many years about the Red Dead, the canal that was supposed to maybe get built between the Red Sea and the Dead Sea. So after many years and studies of the World Bank, they got to the conclusion that you have to invest about $10 billion to make the project happen, and that's a sum of money that I don't think we're going to get from anybody. And therefore, Israel has suggested about 6 years ago to the Jordanians to go to a project that is smaller, but can bring great relief. And we call it, it is called, officially, it is called like the first phase of the Red Dead, but actually I call it a water exchange program. And I'll try to explain what is the reasoning or the logic behind it. The Jordanians need water in the north. In the area of Amman and Irbid, that's about half of the population, more than half of the population lives there. But they have the water resource in the Red Sea is in the south. So the cost of transfer is very high geographically and also in terms of altitude, because Amman sits on a mountain of about 1,000 meters above sea level. So what we suggest to the Jordanians is we are lacking water in the Arava desert. So we can, if you erect a plant, a desalination plant in Aqaba, we are going to buy half of the production, and we're going to supply that production in the north, and thereby saving the costs of the transfers of water. So fortunately, the Jordanians have agreed to the idea, and they have gone out with an international tender for the erection of the desalination plant. Already 17 companies have presented the proposals, and I hope that this project will be able to do it. Now, another aspect of the project is the discharge of the brine into the Dead Sea. So that why we call it phase one, because there are all kinds of environmental concerns. What are going to be the effects of new water getting into the Dead Sea? And therefore, we are going to start with a relatively small quantity of the brine from that desalination plant, and if after assessment, we'll be able to decide whether we can go to the next stage or not. Another aspect that I could go and talk for an hour is our cooperation with Egypt. I know that Seth, is Seth here? Yeah. I spoke yesterday with him, and he said that he wrote a whole chapter on cooperation with Egypt, but he couldn't, make it into the book. It's a very interesting story. I spent there 4 years of my life doing cooperation on water and agriculture with the Egyptians. Now, what is interesting is that the Egyptians have been trying to expand their arable land to the desert because they are suffering from, as you know, explosion of population, and the population actually is building dwellings on the arable land. So their food gap was increasing all the time. So during the 50s and the 60s, they tried to do several projects of expanding arable land, but the problem was that they were using flood irrigation in the desert, which is a promised method to ruin the land. You cannot irrigate with to flood in the desert because all the salts are going to go up and ruin the soil forever. So when the peace agreement came and Sadat invited Ariel Sharon to come to Egypt, and he came with a plane, he toured Egypt, and we started cooperation that went on for about 30 years, in which we transferred all kinds of technologies. And if you see the area that is the red area in the map is Cairo, and the blue area in the north is the red area in the north is Alexandria. So there used to be a road which is called the Desert Road from Cairo to Alexandria. That road is no longer desert because a place there called Nubaria area was developed by the Egyptians with the assistance of Israeli technology, both governmental and private sector. So the Egyptians today have reclaimed more desert land than Israel, actually, as a result of that transfer of technology. And you can see in satellite maps how in 1987 you had the white area there was desert, and in 2013 the whole light red area is area that was cultivated, inhabited by the Egyptians as a result of this transfer of technology. I will end just by mentioning that we have other cooperation projects with partners in the region. As a result of the Madrid process, the multilateral Madrid process in 1990, the Madrid conference, we started a multilateral negotiation. At that time, we decided to invest in joint research of water, and there is a center called MEDREC, that's a Middle East Desalination Research Center in Oman. This activity, despite all the ups and downs in the peace process, is continuing, and it is also a forum in which we can exchange ideas with our neighbors regarding water solutions. So I'll end here, and I thank you very much.